So in the past little while, I've been entering into the coaching industry. The reason for that is because I really wanted to share the teachings I've learned and how they've helped me to deal with a lot of different things that I've been through. My life itself has been relatively traumatic. And by relatively, I mean has been very traumatic. And a big part of my journey has been the spiritual practices that I've been working with and trying to understand my lineages, my ancestry, and various other things that have come together to be able to heal from the things that I've been through. A lot of it has been about clearing the debris and really understanding how these practices work in an experiential way. The way that I've done this is by working with teachers and mentors from different lineages, particularly one of the lineages being an Egypto-Sumerian lineage, which has been passed down for a long time, in which I got initiated into and had been working with for over 8 years. As part of my healing journey, I learned a lot of different things that helped me see what is sort of new age, pseudo-spiritual, appropriated teachings versus what are authentic teachings, which have come from lineage, come from ancestry, which has been passed down over time. It is tried and tested and contextually relevant to the people who have been carrying it. This itself, this tried and testedness, gives truth and validity to these teachings because they have been passed through not just one person, but many different people, which have refined, honed in, and really exhibited prowess in these teachings and whether they're effective or not. So that is also how I choose my mentors. I really evaluate whether they have teachings from lineage or they are just spitting things out. Part of this is done intuitively, the other part is done logically and with critical analysis. And this is where my scientific side really comes into play. Because when you're moving through and learning different things, it is important not only to evaluate what you're being told, but it is also important to really break down the context of those teachings that they existed in and why they worked then and how they can apply now, or maybe how they can't apply now. So this is the start. This is the baseline, it's the foundation that we set ourselves on to have this conversation about how modern spirituality is just not it. I will take you through various different reasons for why. Part of it is going to be ranty, the other part is going to be critical analysis. And we want to include both because some of this is just my perspective and others have been formed over time through the evaluations that I've been working through and through the practices and lineages that I've been working with. Take it with a grain of salt. This is not meant to be a comprehensive guide to everything, but it is meant to comprehensively explain my own experience with these teachings and the things that I've been thinking about quite a bit for the past little while. Okay, so let's get started. So, number one thing that I see so often these days and have been thinking a lot about is manifestation. This comes with so much loaded that we really have to be critical when breaking this down. I'm going to start from my perspective and from what I've noticed. When we talk about manifestation, it is generally in the context of basically you praying and asking for things and then receiving them as some sort of give me candy, give it to me now sort of vibe. The issue with this is that people, and I myself have been a victim to this, is that they take in these teachings as law. However, this law is not substantiated by all lineages. And especially when we start looking deeper into Buddhist and Hindu lineages, which a lot of practices from the West are co-opted and appropriated from, we see that receiving material things is not the path. It is not the Dharma. It is not the truth of what we are trying to accomplish within the spiritual realms. There's nothing wrong with having physical wealth. There's nothing wrong with having material things. However, most Eastern teachings will teach you about the impermanence of those things as opposed to how to try to get more. So that is caveat number one. Caveat number two, these teachings do not bring into consideration when you are asking for something, how you are asking for it. It is simply based on some esoteric ideas which have been diluted. The usual process of manifestation is you have to write things down. You have to feel the way that you would feel in that specific circumstance and based on what you want. You need to basically set a templated mold to achieve the things that you want to achieve, but you gotta physically place yourself through visualization, through meditation practice, through other things, into that state of mind to be able to jump to that reality. There's a couple of things wrong with this, okay? Number one, most people are only asking for materialistic things, which takes us back to caveat one. So basically, these people are trying to use spiritual principles to get more stuff, which often only includes themselves. Maybe it includes their family, maybe it includes some other things. Depends on the person. But often what happens is that this becomes an arm of the capitalistic, individualistic type of society. And we have to really understand that in this type of society, there is privilege. Depending on your position in the society, you will have either more privilege, meaning more access to things that you want to manifest, versus people who have less privilege and do not have the same kind of access. In and of itself, if you are in the position of being a white, straight male, you have a much easier time manifesting things than if you are, for example, a black female. And I am not going to get into the details of why that is. There's more than enough information out there to help you understand what privilege is and its relationship to power, and how if you have power, then obviously things are a lot easier to manifest. Let me give you a metaphor. If I live on a property and I have a fruit tree in my backyard and I want to manifest an apple. Let's say this property is surrounded by a fence. It is down a long dirt road and it is quite far away from the city, okay? So on this property, if I walk around the property within the fence line, no matter how far away that I am from that tree, it is going to be much easier for me to manifest apples than it will be for somebody that is living in the city who may need a car, who may need to travel down a dirt road, possibly even walk because maybe they don't have access to a car, possibly hop over the fence if I decide to let them in to be able to access that apple. And this is how I'm seeing the issue with manifestation. Because when it comes to certain things like mindset, and it comes to certain things like law of attraction, asking for things, praying for things, there is validity in the sense that when you open yourself up to possibilities, when you take and clear away blockages that are really barring you from making certain kinds of decisions, that you start generating a type of place of being which can allow you to have things that you may not be able to access and have, or even think that you deserve, when you have certain beliefs in place. This is often a byproduct of the society you live in and the culture you exist within and what you have been told throughout your life. So in this metaphor, if you are continually told that you are not allowed to access that property and that tree, then you may not even try to do that. So having a mindset shift to be able to, wait, I should be able to access this, I should have the resources to access this, and I actually have the willpower to access this, can put you in line with actually accessing that thing. However, that does not remove the barriers that exist for you to be accessing that thing. And in this metaphor, what I often see, people who are already within the fence line are like, you can get in the fence line too. You can get into the apple tree as well. You can also access this stuff. However, when we know that there is physical things, when there is actual barriers and circumstances which are blocking our ability to get to something, you are misrepresenting reality. You are gaslighting people when you are telling them that they can just as easily access that thing. Much of the issue with all of this comes back to the fact that we live in a society that is heavily based around capitalism and colonized individuals. When we're talking about mindset, the way that we really need to translate this is, where did we actually adopt the mindsets that we have now, which are affecting us negatively? To really get to the root and core of that, we have to start pulling at the threads of society, we have to start pulling at the threads of education, and we have to start pulling at the threads of media. All of these things are intertwined among various other threads. You can pull on any thread in society and you will start to see the truth. This is why I take things from a planetary perspective. A lot of society has taught us to take things from an individual perspective, an individualistic perspective. And often that perspective only revolves around our culture, our beliefs, our upbringing, and our, without considering how do people around the world live, how do different cultures live, and really integrating these perspectives, whether they're social, political, economic, cultural, to be able to see things from a holistic perspective, from a planetary perspective. And a planetary perspective is also an ecological perspective, in that we are looking at things as systems. When we start to look at things from a planetary perspective, and we start considering how things have been affected over time historically, we start to see how things have been manipulated, how things have become much more individualistic, why they've become much more individualistic, and how this is affecting people economically, socially, environmentally, and politically. So what we really need to think about here is, okay, throughout history, why have certain things evolved the way that they have? And this is a very important part of the conversation, which is colonization. Colonization has applied a lot of the principles of divide and conquer. And this perspective has been taken into the nth degree of every part of our society, to the point which it has become systemic and cultural as a norm. When we start looking at colonization as this violent force which has been breaking apart and fracturing the fabric and nature of society to create individuals who are great as workers and employees to build the systems that people in power want to build, that this has really broken down the fabric of humanity. Colonialism turning into capitalism as just an extension, as an evolution, has now resulted in a system in which we are so fractured and broken apart from each other that we are much more easily able to be controlled. With this type of overarching control, this has also bled into spirituality, because when people are fractured and individualized, they don't hold a lot of power, because power comes from organized individuals, power comes from communities, power comes from unionized individuals, individuals who are working together cohesively, like in a corporation, that they can actually result in and influence the changes in our society. And spirituality itself has become highly individualized. It is all about self-improvement, self-empowerment. And to a degree, yes, you can pass that on, but the reason why it's allowed to be passed on in the way that it has been is because it still focuses on the individual and not as a collective. not as people working together to actually shift the systems, to actually manifest something that is much more real and much better for all of humanity, as opposed to just the individual, just yourself. So when we start looking at things from that perspective, we have been segmented and sectioned off in ways that are actually extremely detrimental to our health and have actively been suppressed, both in our spirituality, in our economics, in our social power, in our everything. Everything has become suppressed so that we can be more easily controlled. And so when we're thinking about things like manifestation, and we're thinking about things like law of attraction, and a lot of modern spirituality revolves around these individualistic concepts, which are still extensions of capitalism, of colonialism. They remove a lot of the context and history that is involved in certain teachings. Look at yoga, for example. Yoga has been co-opted and turned into physical fitness, when in reality, yoga was a philosophy of life. It was a way of connecting with the divine, and asanas, the physical practice, is only one small bit of what the whole encompassing system of yoga, even the term yoga, is a very broad term and not what we think it is. This has been diluted over time intentionally to remove spirituality, to sanitize it for the Western palate, to sanitize it and turn it into an individual thing that people can then go to a class, make some movements, and get back to work. The sanitization and colonization of things revolves around how do we make more productive workers, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's psychedelics. It all revolves around feeding people back into the system and utilizing these things in a very controlled manner, these teachings, so that, again, people can get back to work. If we were to look at this from a planetary perspective, we'd see that anything and everything that sort of comes up, capitalism, colonization, has a way of getting co-opted, particularly to be in service to and empowering of the individual, to then be of service back into the system that then feeds the corporations, which then extract labor, which then extract monetary value, and also extract all of the Earth's natural resources for people much higher in power and who have much more economic capabilities than we do as a collective. And you'll see that systemically in a lot of different places, but particularly when it comes to the coaching world, it is a lot of the same stuff. And you'll see this in psychological manipulation tactics, particularly in marketing, which again, most capitalist companies, most corporations will apply to be able to influence people's consumer behavior. The way that we get out of this is not easy and simple. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of understanding of what are we actually doing here? Bringing your perspective back out, zooming out from all of these different things and learning to see all of the parts and pieces and the influences that are happening in the shadows. But I promise you, you start pulling at one thread, whether it's politically, whether it's socially, environmentally, wherever you start pulling that thread, you will start to see the same issues because the tactics are the same. And spirituality is not excluded from this. What you will see is people being fractured, and then people being gaslit, and then people being blamed from the realities that are being created. Not specifically by us, even though we are contributing to those realities. In the societies we exist in, there is active undermining of our mental health. Mental health resources are really difficult to access, they're expensive, and they also exist within a medical system that is actively against people of color and does not understand people of color and their experiences. It is also highly individualized. It is always focused on yourself, self-improvement. When it comes to the society, it is a band-aid. They will give you certain practices, whether it's mindfulness or yoga or whatever it is, as band-aids, as opposed to solving the core root problems that exist within our society. And the reason for that is because as soon as you can put a band-aid on, you can very quickly get somebody back into the system to be able to become a laborer and extract their labor again. And as an individual, you are then blamed if you are not able to provide labor based on your deteriorating mental health. So you're judged. And then on top of that, depending on where you live, like if you don't have insurance, this can also put you in a much more detrimental position financially until you are able to somehow find a way to resolve these mental health issues, which again, they are blamed on you as the person. So society is not even close to set up for circumstances to actually help our mental health, but then on top of that is actively degrading our mental health through the type of labor expectations and through the type of pay that people are given, particularly when we consider the persons of color experience in a marginalized community, which often has lower income than white neighborhoods. And we start pulling all of these pieces together, we start to see that this is not an individual problem. It is highly systemic, and it is meant to be systemic. It is designed to be systemic. And so if we throw manifestation and law of attraction back into that mix, and we start looking at how these things are perpetuated as teachings, they fall into that exact same system of co-option and appropriation from Eastern teachings, diluted to serve an individualistic capitalist system to make you believe that if you just think properly, if you just feel the way that you want to feel, then everything will be fine and you will get what you want. That is not true. And this is exactly what is a huge problem. And this is exactly what I've been so upset about, because it places the blame back on the individual, when the issues in our society are actually planetary and they are systemic. They are things that cannot be resolved just by mindset. They are things that cannot be resolved just by feeling good about something or generating feelings of goodness. While those can be parts, they are very, very small parts when it comes to the system as a whole, because what is required is systemic change, not just individual change. We need change on all different levels. We need cooperation on all different levels, and we need to gain power and influence as a collective to be able to change the path that society is currently headed down. And I don't have all of the answers, but this collective action and collective care, meaning that we are caring for all the people around us. We want to provide abundance for all of the people around us, and to work in cooperation to do so is critical to be able to manifest a better society, not just for myself, not just for the individual, but for all of us. And this is the biggest problem with modern spirituality today. It revolves just around the individual, even though people are out here saying we are all one, and using we are all one as an all lives matter argument to basically discount and discredit doing anything that revolves around making sacrifices as an individual for the collective. So this is my call to you. Really start considering what your teachings are, what your beliefs are, and who are they actually serving. Because if you are being taught something, if you are perpetuating something, and it is only revolving around your self-interest, you are an extension of the system. Everything happens in balance. Sometimes self-serving things are necessary so that we can be in a competent, balanced place so that we can serve. However, if that is the only extent to which we take action, we have lost out on a big part of reality. We have lost out on the collective potential for everybody to be able to meet their needs. And until everybody is able to meet their needs and we are able to help others who can't meet their needs, we are going to be stuck in the same cycle, because that involves dismantling all of the systems that are involved in actually barring us from helping other people meet their needs or helping them meet their own needs, which again, we can go back to mental health, we can go back to food, we can go back to money, we can go back to any of these things. but they are all involved in the same system, which is hurting people and taking away resources from them, stealing their land, killing their people. Spiritually, this is a truth you may not want to face, but it is the most important truth that you will face in your lifetime. If this video interests you, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat about anything and have these kind of conversations so we can keep this conversation going. I would love to hear your thoughts about it, perspectives that you feel that may not resonate that I am offering here. And also, what do you think? What are your solutions? What are your answers? How do you find hope in these kind of systems? And how do you influence change in your own local reality? I would love to hear more. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll chat soon. Peace.